I'm Mike Yanessa, and I'm here with another episode of Car Stories. Stories is a relatively new show to PCTV. We film live the second Wednesday of each month, and then throughout the month it's a rerun on many channels on the PCTV network. So be sure to check us out. We had a real good, about the past 6 months we've been doing this, and we had a real good live show on High Street at the Pottstown Cruise Night, and we'll continue to bring guests with local history for Pottstown and car clubs and drag racing and all the good stuff that people like to watch on TV. You can also watch us on the internet. We have an archive on the internet with past shows. So it's called Car Stories. My name is Mike Yanessa. I have two shops in Pottstown, Wheels in Motion. The mechanical shop is on 26 East 8th Street, and my body shop is at the former Dame Chevrolet Body Shop, which is at 346 Jefferson Avenue. I've been a mechanic all my life. I went here to Pottstown High School. My teacher was John Horosky, who was an excellent teacher. I started out at actually Pottstown Honda, which is Honda Subaru, which used to be on High Street where McDonald's is now. So I remember working at Bart Sunoco back in the 70s and how big cruising was in Pottstown. It was known everywhere for cruising. And because of the cruising, a lot of people would meet on High Street and meet girls and meet people from other schools, and football teams would meet, and everybody. They didn't cruise in station wagons, they didn't cruise in a dirty car, they cruised in their hot rod all shined up. And throughout that cruising, people used to meet at the Tropical Treat, Dempsey's, which is now the VIP, Burger King, and later on McDonald's and Arthur Treacher's. If anybody remembers that, then you tuned into the right show here on PCTV live, December 11th. So throughout the cruising and the car thing that's been big in Pottstown for a number of years, car clubs started. So one of the oldest car clubs, I have a jacket here. It's called the Cruising Crusaders, and some of the people in that, most of them have passed, but Ambrose Lucidi and a fellow named Emery. What was his first name, Larry?
George.
George Emery. And I actually have a hot rod book of them drag racing their car, which was a Woody wagon that John Good had back in the 50s. And this jacket dates back to 1956, the Cruising Crusaders. And it's really cool. Tim Hain is up on State Street. He has a hot rod shop. He does welding. And he was nice enough to loan me the jacket and some license plates. So let's look through some of these license plates and we'll talk about them as they come up. So the first one we have is the Association license plate. The Association was out of Phoenixville, and it was in the mid-60s. And this is an original plate from the Association. And then we have the Verdict. The Verdict was a car club here in Pottstown by Charlie Burkhead in the 60s. And Charlie was a drag racer car guy all his life, and his shop used to be on Franklin Street, which is no longer there. But Charlie's still around the area, so I hope you're watching. The Affiliation, George Brower was president, and that was also back in the 60s. So these are license plates. These are all originals that Tim was nice enough to loan me to show you folks and viewers some of the car clubs in the area. This one here is the Shamrocks, and if you'll see, it's hand lettered. A lot of the guys would hand letter their name on the bottom. And the Shamrocks was a local car club and a social club, and this happens to belong to John Sweeney. John Sweeney I still see today. He's a good guy, and I hope you're watching, John. Terry Miller. Terry Miller for years worked at the State Store at North End Shopping Center. I believe now he's retired. He still comes to the cruise nights. He has, I can't remember what it is, 38 Chevy, 39 Chevy. And he actually started the Cavaliers Van Club in Pottstown. Remember when custom vans were the craze, when everybody had shag carpeting and water beds and lights? That's what this is all about, the Cavaliers Van Club, where they took a stock utility van. A lot of them were old Bell Telephone vans or service vans, and they turned them into a rolling party mobile. So the Cavaliers Van Club. 1968, we have Performance Incorporated. Performance is still together today. It was originally started by Willie Bertodi, Chub Reiner, and other men that I don't know their names, but they're the two I know. Willie Bertodi was a shop teacher here, or is the shop teacher here, at Pottstown High School. And he had a ton of hot cars over the years and hot rods. So Willie Bertodi, Chubb Reinert, who's unfortunately no longer with us, Performance Incorporated. And this one is the American Dream Corvette Club. I was a member of this in 1976. I was one of the first members. It was started by a Pottstown police officer, Neil Pentenbrink. And this club is still in business today. They still have Corvette shows, and it's, like I said, how many years is that? 35, 40 years, that American Dream right out of Pottstown. Bankrupt Incorporated, another one that Charlie Burkhead was involved with, and John Pender, and Monk, I forget his last name. They were all, and they used to meet at Charlie's Garage, and Bankrupt Incorporated unfortunately went bankrupt, so they're not with us today. And then we have the Brotherhood. This is an original Brotherhood plate. They started in the east end of Pottstown, and they went from 70 to 73. A lot of the clubs broke up because they got married, or they went into the service, or maybe they sold their hot rod. So not all clubs stayed together, but we're lucky to have a few that are still active here in Pottstown today. Pottstown Classic Car Club. Jody Rhodes was the first president. This is his plate from his car. It's one of the original plates from, I don't have a year on that, but that's probably back in the late 70s, early 80s. And it was originally designed for 55, 6 and Chevy clubs, or cars, but now it's open to anyone. And these are the folks that put on the great cruise nights on High Street the first Saturday of each month. And they do nice things. All the money goes to charity. And they go from May until September, the first Saturday of each month. So if you haven't been out on High Street, come on out. There's some good places to eat, and it's a nice night out. Pottstown Classics. This is a plate, it goes back to the 80s. This is my plate that we were cruising High Street, and somebody had these made up, and they were selling them. This is when, if you remember, if any of the local guys remember, they were trying to stop cruising, and there was a big protest against it. They made these plates up to everybody put on their car to keep it alive. And then the one I have here at the end is the Little Brothers Incorporated. The car club is still together today after many years, and I'm lucky enough tonight to have 3 members of the Little Brothers right here live on PCTV, Car Stories. And we have Lenny Cox over here to my left. We have Larry Lilly, and we have Larry Shaner. And they are still members. The club's still active. They still do things. They still are involved in cars after all these years. So at this point, I'm going to turn the show over to Lenny and Larry, and they're going to tell you about Little Brothers Car Club, originated right here in Pottstown. From what they told me before the show, they talked about it up at the Tropical Treat parking lot, which today, for you viewers, it's Cadillac Jack's Used Cars. But that was quite the place to hang out with your hot rod and your date. So right now we're going to ask Lenny to start it off and tell you about Little Brothers Car Club. Lenny?
Thanks, Mike. It's really good after all these years to be able to sit back and talk and remember all the things that happened over those years. It's been a long time. And
roughly how many years has it been? I mean,
well, last year we had our first reunion. It was 45 years.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And this year we had our second reunion. So we plan on doing this every year.
Right.
Around September, we try to bring everybody in that we can, and families, and your wife.
Right.
And
nice.
It's a real good time.
It is.
It's nice to share old stories and talk about people you haven't seen in years.
Right.
In fact, it was so odd, on our 45th reunion, we put on name tags so we could look at each other and say, I know you.
Yeah.
I know it's been 45 years, I know you, but then
right.
It was nice. It was a nice touch.
And what is it, like a dance?
No, actually, what we do is we get together, and I have a picture of our reunion.
Okay.
What we did is we just got together and had a nice meal. We had a place reserved in Saratoga.
Good.
Where we sat down and just enjoyed each other and talked about old times and shared some stories. And
oh yeah, that's neat.
Telling everybody where we gone, where we've been the last 40 plus years.
Yeah, a lifetime.
For some people.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so nice to be able to come and talk to other people and let the young people know where we've been, what we've seen, and perhaps maybe another car club will start in Pottstown. That would be good. But we just enjoy each other as friends, friendships that we've kept for years,
Right.
still have. We go out as couples to eat together. And
Right.
it's just nice to share.
Right. And tell us what Little Brothers was all about back in the day. I mean, what did you do? It wasn't just a bunch of guys that cruised High Street. They did a lot of things for the community, and tell us about that.
Well, basically, we got together, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, at the Tropical Treat. The Phillips brothers were patient enough to allow us to gather there as a car club. We had a lot of members from Owen J. Roberts School District, a lot of members from Potts Grove School District, a few from Boyertown, where we would see each other and recognizing that we were all people who loved our cars, because we never came out with them dirty. We always cleaned them up before we came out.
No.
And we would go up and down High Street, and although we didn't know each other, we would wave or compliment the other person on their car. And an idea came about why don't we form a club where we can do things together, which we did. That's how the Little Brothers got started. We talked about things we could actually do, and it was an amazing, after we were together for a few years, the things that we were actually did with the community. Not just drive up and down High Street.
Right. That's really cool.
But we got to be good friends with Frank Mann, who was in charge or the president of the 3As here in Pottstown.
I remember him.
And they had a nice article about us in the 3A magazine. And we got to be friends with Police Chief Rogers. And the safety officer at that time was Captain Fetter. Sergeant, I just think I may have just promoted him to captain, but his last name was Fetter, and he came to our meetings occasionally and talked to us and suggested things that we can do. We had a bicycle rodeo here in town for the kids, and one of the most unique things we did was there was 4 or 5 of us that got in a car. We went around Pottstown and we observed people doing safe things with their car. We wrote down their license number, and we gave it to the Pottstown police. They gave us the names of the people back, and we awarded them gift cards and certificates for being a safe driver.
Wow.
And Pottstown Mercury picked up on that, and they put a nice story about us in the paper, too.
And when was this? In the 70s?
This is early 60s.
Early 60s?
Late
Wow.
60s.
Yeah,
Jeez.
early 60s. We hit a situation in the mid-60s, much like you were talking about a minute ago as well, where the draft was still instituted at that time.
Sure.
And fellows started getting drafted, and some fellows started getting married. We had to choose which was better, marriage or going to service. So some fellows chose marriage, some fellows chose service. And it just happened that as we got older, responsibilities changed.
Right.
But we were most active, I think, in the early 60s, mid-60s, even late 60s, the 60s.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And Vance Bowers, as we talked to before the show, he was instrumental in starting the club, and he was actually my first boss at Pottstown Honda as a
Is that
service
right?
manager. He moved out of the area, but I remember him having the plate on the front of that Corvette.
Yeah. He was the president of the club.
Wow.
And I was a vice president. And as time went on and Vance moved on as well, I became president. And Larry next to me was the treasurer. And David Bourget was the treasurer.
I was vice president.
Larry became vice president.
Oh, okay.
And I forgot.
That's okay.
But we still share friendships today. It's been such a long time. We even got together and we even had our own baseball team. We had our own football team, and we just did things together.
And did you have through that whole time period just one car, or did you trade them in, or what was your?
Well, we had
car?
a couple fellows who kept a car maybe 2 years, maybe.
Right.
I started out with I had a GTO in '65.
Okay.
And then I went to a '67 Chevelle, which I bought down at Dame Chevrolet. And a few cars I had. Then it was Kaiser Chevrolet.
It was Kaiser's. That's right.
Yeah. And then Jerry Dames sold it to me. So he later became the owner. But a lot of people were Chevy. Larry doesn't like to hear this because he's a Chrysler guy.
He's a Chrysler guy. I know that.
But there was a lot of, I'd say about 3/4 of the club was Chevrolet.
Chevrolet. And what did Larry have back then? What car did you have?
64 Max Wedge car.
Oh my gosh! Wow. And Larry Shaner had
63 SS 409.
Oh my, wow.
Beautiful car.
It was beautiful.
What color?
Turquoise with a black interior.
They were the days. They
Yeah.
had some good cars back then, and phew, I was only a young child, younger back then, but I remember them cruising High Street. My brother had a '56 Chevy,
Yeah.
and I was about maybe 7, 8 years old when we cruised High Street, and it was a neat time, and it remained cool all the way up until probably 2000, and now unfortunately due to different interests and different lanes on High Street, they don't cruise anymore. But at one time, that was a thing to do.
Well, we had a
Hang
different
out.
we had a different turnaround that you didn't mention.
What?
Because we used to go down to Geno's.
Oh yeah,
Remember when Geno's was on High Street? I think Brom Electric is in
Rom
there.
Electric,
Electric,
yep, used to be
yeah, yeah.
Geno's.
That used to be an amazing, you could go into Geno's and get a hamburger, french fries, and a Coke and get $1, give them $1 and you got a couple cents change back. So that shows you how long ago that was.
Yep, now I remember it.
But that was our turnaround spot to go back up to the treat then.
Right.
Yep.
And then later on, when the Burger King came, then that was the other turnaround
Stretched
spot.
it down.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I do remember Geno's.
Back then in the street racing days, you used to tie from Manatoni up to the tree. You tried to catch, I seen you, I tried to catch a light with you. Because
Oh,
back in the early days before we got legit, I mean, we were at a drop of a hat, you'd race somebody. That's the way
Right.
it was.
right. But yeah, that's right. But then later on, I understand you guys
Yeah.
made them go to Maple Grove because
Yeah,
of
we
street
used to
racing.
Yeah.
You,
Like
you
I
want to
said,
get the reputation of being, and that's the thing. Even when they stopped cruising, I mean, the majority of the people went out there to show off their cars.
Right.
They went out there to eat. They didn't go out there to raise cane. And unfortunately, they got a bad rap, because they stopped cruising in Pottstown, and it brought a lot of revenue and it brought a lot of friendships, and it's sad to see it's not still alive today. But maybe that'll change. Maybe it'll start up again. But for now, we have the car shows at least on High Street. But
We can kid about it, but there was a lot of serious. I mean, we'd go out at 23 nights for 2-3 hours and race.
Sunday nights.
Sunday nights.
Sunday nights.
and you were saying people would bring their race cars in
Oh, yeah.
that
Oh,
weren't
yeah, I
street
mean,
legal and just unload them and go at it.
Quite a few big names that you and I both know. I mean, if it was somebody coming in from Norristown or Reading, I mean, they came to Pottstown back in.
Well, that's one thing a lot of young people don't realize. Pottstown was the cruising capital
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah.
the East Coast.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, there was no
Hands
other.
down.
Wordtown had a little
There was
cruise,
a
and
lot of
Collegeville had a little, but Pottstown was the
Kingpin.
There was a lot of magazine articles about
lot.
Pottstown.
It
cruising
was.
Pottstown.
It was. It really was.
Then the day came when we became legit.
Right.
And we started working with we wanted to give a good name for ourselves. We didn't want anybody to talk about us and say that, oh yeah, that car club.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we actually put a standard rule in our club that if you were street racing, you were removed from the club.
Right.
We took your plate away. We had to close the membership at 50 because there was between 70 and 80 people all the time that wanted to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had people on a waiting list in case one of our people moved, went away, or whatever the circumstances were, that they could actually come in
Right.
the club. And
There for a while, we had people trying to join just for the
Right.
social aspect. They
Right.
weren't really
Right.
car guys, and we
Right.
had a little membership committee. We used to sort of
Yeah.
regulate that because we had back then, it was a fortune back then, but we all had yellow Peters jackets, which we were supposed to bring, which we forgot with their everything.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah,
Bicycle-
they wanted to join just to get the jacket
Yeah,
and the license plate.
Went to Weiss and Corns, and you had your Peters jacket made. They made
Wow.
you pay for it. And that was
yeah, we used to go to,
Yeah.
we went to Weiss and Corns.
Yeah.
And when they saw the Little Brothers coming, they thought, here we go, 50 Peters
Money.
jackets. And we over the year, I guess we ordered 3 different colors.
Right.
Started with
one
yellow.
insulated and 2 regular. And that was a big thing in
It was.
Pottstown to have a Little Brothers plate, a Little Brothers jacket, and being a member in good standing of the club.
Right.
And
It
we're
was a
very
good thing.
proud of that.
You should be. That was neat. That's a neat time period, and I like that. You set that example working with the police and working with the safety aspect of it, and that's cool.
They liked it too.
Timmy. I mean, the guy we all know, Timmy
Yep.
Haynes, gave you the plates and
Yep.
sort of the guru of Pottstown for nostalgia.
Yes. Yes.
He was riding his bicycle 'cause I worked for Jack Leary part-time then. And
Oh, yeah.
We hung at Jack's, and Timmy and Johnny Connick had their bicycles, and they used to ride their bicycles, and they used to, like when we got together with the union, we didn't realize how some of these younger guys sort of looked up to us, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
once we went legit, they thought that was really, the way to go. But
And
there were two of them.
Jack Leary's, for you guys, it was a speed shop on High Street.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in later years, then it was out on Hanover Street.
Right.
But for many years, it was on High Street. And, even me as a kid, that was a place to go to look at the wheels, look at the
Yep.
tacks, and
Yeah, we
all the
hung
cool
there.
stuff.
Yep.
And same thing with me. I seen all the older guys with their hot rods. And,
Yep.
you got to understand, back in the 60s, if you had a mags and a tack, that was a full-blown custom race car.
That's
right.
Nobody had disposable income to buy all
Right.
that billet and MSDs and all the stuff we buy today for our hot rods. Back then, you needed one set of wheels and usually rims on the back because you couldn't afford to buy 4 at once. You'd have 2 on the front,
Yeah.
different wheels on the back, and a tack. And I remember cruising with my brother and saying, "Wow, look at that car!" And
On a nice Saturday, that whole street in front of Jack's was parked
Yeah.
with a lot of them. Most of them were little
Yeah.
brothers back then because
Yeah.
Jack really supported us.
right.
He did.
And then I started
Yeah.
working for him, and
Was he always there, or didn't he move? Was he across the street?
well,
Where
he was
were-
down in East End when it started with his brother. Actually, it was a B&J
Yes.
with Bobby and Jack, the two boys,
Yes.
and then they didn't get along, so Jack went out on his own, Jack Leary's, but it was,
I remember when I was up there at the, I don't know what block it is near Raiden's Fruit.
well, that's where it was.
That's where it
what I'm
was.
talking about. That's
Okay.
when I worked for
Yep.
Jack.
Yep.
But when they first came to town, they were down
Yeah, they were
near Embody somewhere. It was
No
B&J.
B&J.
Yeah, I
B&J
remember him
Auto and
telling me
Speed
that.
Shop, and they had
Wow.
well, they actually had a factory-backed Superstock Plymouth.
Hmm.
And then the boys didn't get along, and Jack went out on his own.
On his own. Yeah, he was the speed. That was the speed shop back then in
Yep.
Pottstown. Yeah. Wow.
One of the really hard parts of our reunion was, Mike, when we did get together, and I had 4 or 5 guys came to my house twice a week, and we had a reunion. Our first reunion was on 9/11. Believe it or not, we thought that was very appropriate.
Mm.
But for the weeks that we met prior to our first reunion, we went over because I still have the roll book. I still have the roll book from 50 years ago.
Wow.
And we went over, we lost, between last year and this year, we took the numbers over the last 45 years, we lost 14 of our members.
14
Out of 50.
out of 50.
Out of 50. Of the 50 that were remaining when the club dissolved, 15 or 14 had passed.
Wow.
Unfortunately, 2 or 3, well, unfortunately
Just
for all of them,
recently.
but 2 or 3 of them were for Agent Orange, guys who had served in Vietnam.
Right.
A little bit of many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happened over the years, but that was hard. When we had our first reunion, we said a prayer before the meal for not only the 9/11 victims,
Right.
but we had a bell that we tolled for every man we had lost over those
From the
years.
club.
And we lost, it was 12, it was 11 at the time. We lost 3 more last year till this year. We had our reunion again in September. And we tolled the bell for them too. Because it's hard, you think you're going to be 20 forever.
Yeah.
Or 16 or 18. And suddenly you turn around one day, like my dad said, you're going to get old someday. You're just not going to realize how fast you got there. He was right, because when we look back at our friends who had departed, it was hard.
Yeah. Oh, sure it is. And then as you get older, it's a fact of life anymore, But it's still good to have the memories, and it's still good that, you guys, honored them at your reunion. Why don't you show us the thing from the Mercury there for the
Oh.
reunion? I remember when this was in the paper, and then I haven't heard the name, at this point, I didn't hear the name Little Brothers for years. I'm like, oh my, I remember that car. I remember all the older guys with the license plates on. But that's out of the Mercury, what, a couple years ago?
That's right. We had about 2 months before the first reunion that we had.
That's neat.
We did not know where everybody was. We did not know where everybody
Sure,
was scattered
you
to.
lose track of it all them years.
And they said, well, let's put an ad in the paper. And we started out with a quarter-page ad, and finally it turned out to be a full-page ad for the reunion to people, to contact us so we could let them know that was happening.
Are you going to have one every year or every couple of years? Every year.
Every year we're
because
gonna
they're-
reunion.
So,
And we-
is there any missing members or anyone you didn't find?
We pretty well
Pretty much
grabbed
got 'em?
everybody. I mean, a lot of the cost of this ad was picked up by one of Mike's competitors, Blast from the Past, and Bill put a lot, and
Oh, that was
we
nice.
raised some money with some raffles and tried to help him, but Bill wanted to do that for us.
So that was nice. That was really good.
Give Bill credit on that.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause we,
Yeah, if you don't know, Blast from the Past is a street rod shop on High Street across from Hilltop. And as they said, that he helped with the cost of the ad to get them back together. He was not a member, though, back in the
Oh,
day.
yeah, Bill was
Was he?
original.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bill
okay.
was
Yep.
an original member.
Oh, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Because I remember talking to Lenny the next day. He said, "Did you see the ad?" He said, "Or something. You can see it from outer space." It was a whole page. We
Yeah,
were-
yeah.
How could you miss it?
All right, nice. And what age you got there to show us?
Well, actually,
Lenny?
it's a picture from our first reunion.
All right.
I don't know if you
Can you zoom in on that? We can
don't
get
know
that
who all
on.
the guys are.
Yeah, we don't recognize all the old guys on here, but
Yes.
maybe you'll see we all have a
Oh,
name
that's-
tag on, so we can look at each other and say, "I remember." But it was
That's neat. That's really cool
yeah,
you did that.
It was nice to get together and to have
Yeah.
that. And the other thing was we had shirts made that everyone could have. We don't have the Peters jackets anymore, but we certainly have the Little
The
Brothers.
shirts are really cool.
Yeah, and Mike, you're going to have one.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
I
get
him
appreciate
one.
that.
We're going to have a shirt for you.
Good.
I thought you probably wondered the other day when we talked. I said, "What size T-shirt do you wear?" You probably
Yeah,
asked.
I had an idea. I thank you, Lenny. That's nice.
But yeah, you're going to have one of these as well.
I will wear it with pride. I'm telling you. I do remember him as a kid.
Willie Bertodi has one. He conned me out of one night when we were talking. So
Oh, yeah?
Willie does have one.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, we're getting close to the end of the show, folks. So I want to thank these three gentlemen for coming here tonight and sharing their great story with us. Larry, do you have anything to say?
Well, I was just going to mention it. We used to do a lot of hanging out at Hartman's Atlantic. They were one of our
It's Atlantic up in
in
Stowe,
Stowe.
which was a golf, and yeah, sure. Sure.
He is the first business owner that recognized us as who
Yeah.
we were. But Bill, Pop Hartman, his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and Herb Hartman and his wife Carol had the Arco station across from the Continental Bank there in Stowe, which is now a tattoo parlor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they put a
Big-
billboard
Big
outside
billboard.
No kidding.
advertising the home of the Little Brothers.
We can't find a picture of it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. If
And,
anybody out there has a picture of that billboard, any of the Hartman family, anyone, we're asking for it. I hope our viewers that watch the show spread the word around. Again, I want to thank Larry Shaner, Larry Lilly, and Lenny Cox for coming here and sharing their great story about Little Brothers right here in Pottstown. And unfortunately, I'd like to sit here all night and talk more because it was really great, but unfortunately, we're out of time. My name is Mike Yanessa. The sponsor of the show is Wheels in Motion, my company here in Pottstown. Check us out on the web at www.wheels-in-motion.biz. So tune in again next month, the second Wednesday of January. We'll have another live show, and throughout the month, check your Mercury listings when Car Stories airs. So thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you guys for coming and making this a good show. Thank you.